Hi, this is Polly Pearson, and welcome to the 4th episode of Visual Talk Radio, where we discuss what's compelling, challenging, and cool about EMC. My co-host today is Monya Keene, editor of our hugely popular and great magazine, EMC Now. Hi, Monya.
Hi, Polly. Thanks for having me.
Sure, and congratulations on that September issue.
Thanks.
Fabulous stuff. More fun than Business Week. So we're getting larger as a company, but there's no reason why we can't foster a more connected feeling among the EMC family, and that's what we hope to do with this program. Our guests for this show are two professionals who fearlessly work toward getting EMC noticed. They're passionate also about helping others navigate their careers. You'll hear from a superstar recruiter and a social media PR expert, both working to further EMC's brand, Barbara Massa and Dan Schawbel. The show is about the two-way street of branding and career navigation today. Barb represents the company side of the employment brand, and Dan, the personal side. Welcome, Barbara.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good night, wherever you may be.
And we do have people I see from Russia and all over Europe. Thank you for enduring the time zones. And welcome, Dan.
Welcome.
Let me turn over to you, Monya, to kick it off. We talked about the brand being a two-way street. Barbara, can I start with you? Tell me about the external recruiting landscape. What's changed in just the last couple of years as you see it?
Sure, that's a great question, and I sort of liken it to the dot-com boom. Things moved at such a fast and quick pace back in the early and mid-'90s, and what we're seeing now is, a similar sort of progression in just the last 1 to 2 years across the recruiting landscape. And the interesting thing is, if you think back to how, people used to find jobs, 5-10 years ago, it all served and was largely a resume-based, and gosh, to date myself, but think back to thermal fax paper and physically walking applications and resumes and mailing them on the fancy parchment paper, which I'm sure many of you on the phone can recall, to where we are today. And where we are today is there's been a dramatic shift in how both job seeker and candidate interact with company and recruiters and hiring managers. And the best way I can describe this is that it's much more of a two-way vetting process now. It used to be this unidirectional, place ad, place position, hope candidate applies or, know someone who's a fit, and it's this one-way siphon to the company. Company gets to make all the decisions. Company is the final say on who gets the job. Well, quite frankly, now at this point, what these social networking and social media platforms have opened up is this two-way street. A perfect example of this is a couple of years ago, I actually hired a senior operations manager to my team. And as we were going through the process, she was able to Google me. You simply enter Barbara Mass and EMC into a Google search, and up pops, press interviews I've done or, blog articles I've written. She can see my LinkedIn profile. And she was able to go, oh, well, gosh, there's now 3 other people I know at EMC, so let me call them and let me get kind of the backdoor scoop on what it's like to work for Barbara. What's this company really all about? And I think that's the power of social networking, not only kind of for your personal brand, which, obviously we've got an expert in Dan to speak about that, but the whole recruiting process is much more of a two-way street than it ever was before, which I think is really powerful for people to make good decisions, both about the candidates they're hiring as well as candidates as they're evaluating us as an employer.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Dan on that. Dan, is a person at risk? What if you don't want to blog, you don't have a website, you are not Googleable? Is that necessarily a bad thing?
You'll lose visibility, that's for sure, but you can also hide yourself as well. I would definitely recommend having internet presence because people are looking for you. It could be before an interview. It could be even after you date a girl. It could be at any situation in your life. People want to find out more about you, and they're using Google as a personal background check. So Google, in my opinion, holds your personal record, and any comment you make on a blog, if your Facebook profile, a video on YouTube, everything is searchable. Everything will last in Google, especially the stuff you can control and can't get rid of.
Now, that sounds intimidating perhaps to some. What is intriguing to me is the fact that if you opt out of this, then you're letting other people manage your brand.
And claim your space.
People are commenting about you, and you're not there to counter it. Is that correct?
Companies have experienced this all the time. So, for instance, ExxonMobil had a Twitter account, but it wasn't sponsored by ExxonMobil. It was by some woman who just wrote or tweeted on Twitter. And it was, mainstream publicity because Exxon didn't care. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't even notice it. So that's a really important. It's reputation management on crack almost, because not only do you have to worry about the mainstream media now, you have to worry about 113,000 bloggers. You have to worry about, 100 million people on Facebook and 120 million on MySpace and so forth, and 23 million on LinkedIn. There are people out there that are holding the conversations. EMC, we're starting to measure the conversation, see what people are saying, and increase our share of voice in the marketplace as well. Because there's a correlation between the success of the individual who works for the company, either outside or inside, and that of the company. So individuals now, no matter where you are in a company, can help push EMC's brand further ahead or actually break it to the ground.
That concept of the two-way street is really fascinating to me. It kind of gives a whole new definition of the information superhighway, but I don't think that was the definition that the originators of that term had in mind.
Exactly.
So combining the theme of brand reputation, personal brand, and corporate brand, and acknowledging that it's a two-way street, how do you, once you have the job, manage your brand reputation and that of your company, Dan?
Well, it's all on you now. Everyone has to be their own publicist. They have to take care of themselves and the company, and everything they say and do can be held to the company and themselves. So, what a lot of people need to do is they have to first be aware that this stuff exists out there. Then they have to play around with the technology. You have to start learning this stuff from the ground out. I recommend logging onto EMC1 and playing around, starting a blog, and getting reactions from everyone else, getting feedback, or starting a personal blog externally and figuring out how to build the technology, use it, comments, posts, and everything like that before you start more of a major website focused on your expertise. It's good to practice and learn from the ground up.
In your opinion, are there EMC employees other than yourself that have recognizable brands, and perhaps what are they or who are they?
Well, everyone has a brand because we're all being judged on a constant basis, and we all have to constantly sell ourselves. In terms of EMC employees, if you go on EMC.com and go to the top of the screen under Community, there's 16 bloggers such as Chuck Hollis and Steve Todd and Len Devana that are already on there, and they already are claiming some share of voice, and they're more thought leadership blogs, but they also promote EMC at the same time. And then, of course, any executive has enough visibility that they have a strong, recognizable brand in our marketplace. So it really works. It doesn't even matter where you are anymore, though. You could have someone who's an intern that might have just as much share as someone who's a manager now. It's really how much you want to participate and generate content on the web, and how much you want to push your limits almost.
Take Lisa's question.
Oh, yeah, a question coming in from Lisa. Would you suggest building your brand fundamentals and architecture, identify your key value proposition, et cetera, before you start broadcasting your personal brand? And I think that Dan had some observations on that.
Yeah, I look at a whole personal branding process, and the first step is what you're touching on right now. That's discover your brand. So you want to figure out what you're passionate about. You want to figure out what topic that you can lend the most expertise in. You want to figure out, as you say, a value proposition. You want to figure everything out before you head in and start creating everything. But at the same time, you need to protect yourself. And when we say the largest social networks, these are places where you need to register and create profiles like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are the top three. Plus, you need your own domain name. So yourname.com, and GoDaddy can walk you through that process. It's really important because it's not just promoting yourself, it's not just discovering your brand now, but it's also about protecting yourself, because there's other people who are going to have the same name, and if they claim their sites before you, you really lose out. You're going to lose the visibility as well.
It's the next .com domain rush per se. You really, and I bought the domain names for all my kids too, so that they get out there. Forgive me, somebody's asking what's Dan's last name. It's Dan Schawbel, and
they're Googling me.
And